Hey, this is Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still going.
Still going. And here on Power Rankings with the old Zeuser, DanHanzus, I am Matt Money Smith. You know the drill. We are excited to be with you this afternoon, and a tip of the cap to Rachel Bonetta for filling in last week. I am back in the saddle.
She was great. She was really good.
You know what? I heard that. I actually heard she was so good that she essentially overshadowed you. That your performance was lacking and left many wanting.
All right. Okay. Look out.
Be a little thankful here. That's right. I'm here to put the spotlight on the old Zeuser, the author of Hour 1 through 32, found at NFL.com, but more importantly, found right here on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still going.
Still going. Here's our 1 through 8. Up 2 spots, the Arizona Cardinals overcoming. And we should probably start there. The Titans, by the way, now your new leaders in the AFC. We'll get to them in a moment. But let's start with those Cardinals, Dan, overcoming a rash of injuries to continue their winning ways and stay in control of the number one, or get back in control, I should say, of the number one spot.
Yeah, I mean, it was Sunday, Bloody Sunday money in the NFL, where 6 of the top 10 teams in the power rankings went down entering last week. And the Cardinals, they were supposed to go. They were supposed to go down. They didn't have Kyler Murray. They didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. They were playing a Niners team on the road that was really looking like they were about to put things together. They had George Kittle back. It was all pointing in a certain direction, but nobody told Colt McCoy. Nobody told James Conner. Nobody told Christian Kirk. Those guys all balled out, and they were in complete control of that game from the jump. And as a result, they're 8-1. And as they've been, I believe, 4 of the last 6 weeks now in the power rankings, the Cardinals are number 1. This was an easy one. It got tougher as the list went on this week, Money, but not at number 1.
No, and you know, I think the 2 names that you left off, you know, just because that's the kind of guy you are, and that's Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim. I mean, you were talking about 2 dudes that were embattled, that were probably on the hottest
seat. Am I supposed to say, like, everyone's name in the entire organization?
Well, if you're going to do the name soup thing, if you're going to do name soup and just start throwing names out there, you might as well put those 2 in there, because Cliff Kingsbury is likely your coach of the year if this keeps up. This is the analogy I'll make. And for whatever reason, as we are here in Los Angeles, there are teams that want to do serious damage to the teams that reside here. The Giants were picked to finish close to last in the NL West, and all they did was lead the league in wins. The Cardinals were picked to finish last in the NFC West, and the Rams, along with the Seahawks, were favorites. And what are the Cardinals doing? They are ruining everyone's plans, and they're doing it in the face of adversity. And to me, that's the sign of a winning team, one that's not only going to win in the regular season, but has a chance to make a run in the postseason. You overcome injury, you overcome adversity, you have weird things go your way, like a missed field goal against the Vikings, and that's essentially what the Cardinals have done through 9 games this season in that 8-1 mark.
Yeah, and it wasn't name salad or whatever you called it. Those are 3 guys that stepped up on Sunday, and James Conner specifically, Money. I mean,
Zeuser's a little defensive in my return. Little defensive. Hey,
James Conner,
wasn't named salad or named soup or whatever you call it.
Whatever you call it, they were all big contributors on Sunday. And James Conner especially sticks out to me. He leads the NFL in touchdowns and made me think of Steve Keim. So let me make sure I get the front office involved here. Steve Keim had some tough times in this organization where it felt like he might have been on the ropes. He could have been swept out. And now he's come all the way back around and built this really good team. He's on a heater, and James Conner is an example of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, defensively, as you mentioned, you have injuries. Chandler Jones was out forever, and J.J. Watt picked up the slack. Now J.J. Watt goes out. Chandler Jones is back. There was a lot of questions about that linebacking core, about all these hybrid players that are kind of multi-positional. Is this the right way to build a defense? Yes.
Sure.
The answer to that is yes, it is.
Athletic, fast teams on defense are good in the modern NFL.
You said it. No decisions. I should say it was not a tough decision to figure out who was going to go into that number 1 slot. But what about number 3? What about the top team in the AFC now being the Tennessee Titans, all the way up to number 3?
You know, I love the Titans fans because they're completely insane. They get all fired up.
No one gets after you like the Titans fans.
Nobody gets after me like the Titans fans. And they said we should have been in the top 3 weeks ago. But you know what? I guess I needed to see it. And now they put together 5 straight wins, 4 against big-time teams. Maybe the Colts were in a big-time team, but the Colts are in a desperate spot. And they won that game. And then what they do on Sunday night, this shows that they can go and beat an NFC superpower on the road. And yes, you lost Derrick Henry, but you know what you have now? You have a real defense. And that's what's kept the Titans out of the Super Bowl the last couple of years. They've had this great offense with Tannehill and Henry, but they didn't have a defense that could hold up. And their ability to get after the quarterback changes everything. They were looking for pass rushers forever. Now it feels like they got them everywhere.
you look at the Rams and you have the best front back end combo. You've got Aaron Donald up front to put pressure on the quarterback, Jalen Ramsey to clean it up when a quarterback makes mistakes. That's what the Titans have. They have Jeffrey Simmons, who a lot of people aren't familiar with, and you talk about John Robinson. I'm going to bring up the general manager again. He had an ACL. Simmons was going to miss the first half of the season the year he was drafted, and teams were afraid of him. But the talent grades were in the top 10. A lot of people had him in the top 5, and you saw that yesterday with those 3 sacks. On the back end, they have the best safety in the game in Kevin Byard. And some people don't know who he is, but those that do recognize that he is as good as it comes. So it's a very similar setup as the Rams had, and you saw what kind of damage that can inflict. And it was just a bad matchup for Matthew Stafford. And look, you said it, Dan. This is a team that in 4 consecutive weeks has essentially knocked their division rival out of the division race, knocked off a very good Chiefs team, and knocked off a Rams team that a lot of people were talking about as maybe being the #1 team in the league going into this contest. It's a team with an identity. The offense didn't have to really do much of anything against the Rams because the defense was able to carry them, and we've never said that about the Titans before.
No, we haven't. And I guess you look at the power and you say, oh, so you think this is the best team in the AFC. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know. We'll see. But right now, where the AFC is in a little bit of flux, it's the Titans that are the only team that week after week are saying, we're for real, we're tough, we overcome adversity, and we don't care who we're against. We're going to put up a fight and win every week lately.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Los Angeles. That's 4 quality.
Nice.
That's playoff tested. When you can do that, when you can go on the road and win against a division rival and again sweep them for the season. That was the season sweep in Indianapolis.
And not for nothing, Derrick Henry is out. He's on the shelf with foot surgery. But there is the chance that he comes back at the end of the season. So if this season continues to snowball in a positive way, and all of a sudden they're 13-4 or 12-5 headed into the playoffs, and then you get Henry back, look out.
Yeah, by the way, without Derrick Henry, I'll just put a button on it, and this is the second button that I'm putting on something here already.
A lot of buttons.
A lot of buttons out there, and there's one to my left that we're going to get to in just a moment. But if it's not Cliff Kingsbury, look out. Mike Vrabel could very well be your coach of the year, losing Derrick Henry, the identity of that offense, and continuing to win and maybe posting the best.
You need a hook. You need a hook in the coach of the year.
And there it is.
That's a hook.
Here's your 9 through 16 Chargers after a win in Philadelphia, snapping that 2-game losing streak up 3 spots. And how about the Browns after throttling the Bengals, jump up 6 spots all the way to number 10. And there's a lot. There's some good teams in there. And that, especially when you look at the AFC and you try to figure out what those 3 wild card squads are going to be. But let's focus on the Browns after what was perhaps their most impressive victory of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Who would have thought against the Bengals, their most impressive victory?
Against the Bengals, they romped them. It was the worst beating they put on the Bengals in decades. And it had to be one of the more rewarding games of Baker Mayfield's career because this thing could have really went sideways.
No
I hated what Odell did last week. It was a guy that jumped off a ship that wasn't even sinking. He quit on his team, and he threw his quarterback under the bus and opened the door for other players, other teammates, people across the league to pile on Baker Mayfield and say he's no good. It's not a team player. And what Baker did, he said, no, I still command respect in this locker room. I have talent, I have ability, and I'm going to show it without Baker, and that's what he did. It wasn't without Odell. It wasn't just Baker Mayfield. Nick Chubb is a stud. This team has a lot of talent, but Mayfield showed that he is not a guy to overlook and view as some type of middle-of-the-road QB.
I think if you were to poll a lot of, and I got a front office thing going right now, but if you were to poll a lot of executives in the league, I would imagine the Browns are getting a lot of first-place votes for just most talent on the roster, top to bottom on both sides of the ball. And I think it's important to remember, this is a team that was banged up. And I know some people, don't want to talk about injuries. Every team has to deal with them. But they're healthy. And you're now seeing what the Browns look like if they stay healthy. With the front, Myles Garrett is probably your odds-on favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And you have a back end now with Newsome and Denzel Ward, who are both healthy, that showed you what they can do because of how much pressure that front, led by Clowney and Garrett, is able to put on quarterbacks. This was a really bad matchup for the Bengals. We'll get to that in a little bit. But to me, they reminded you. And I think when you want, and look, Baker deserves incoming. He's not in that elite category, but he does what's asked of him. Right. And it makes it a lot easier, I think, when there's no Odell Beckham Jr. out there. You saw that. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. There's a large enough sample size to recognize he's a better quarterback when Odell Beckham Jr. is not on the field.
I agree with everything you just said about the Browns. I think they're a team to keep an eye on. That's why they've moved up to number 10. But I want to see a little consistency from this team. And we're going to get a great test. They go to Foxborough next week against another good team that's playing well. Put put together back-to-back big-time performances, and I think the Browns will start getting really pumped up as maybe the best team in the AFC or very close.
And I think as we saw the first two quadrants of power rankings, Dan, a playoff preview as both of those teams are smack in the middle of where you have your playoff teams fixated. So maybe we will see it in the postseason. We love playoff previews in Week 10. All right, a lot of upsets. You alluded to it at the top of the show. And man, get a look at this. We already talked about the Browns and the Bengals. The Broncos are up 30-0. That score is misleading for those of you that may not have seen it. 30-0 with 5 minutes left. We already talked about the Titans and the Jags knocking off the Bills with, 5 field goals is all we have on offense in that game. Urban Meyer gets the big victory. And then the Giants, a frisky bunch, knocking off the Raiders as they are now tied atop the AFC West. So let's get to whether or not it's time to panic. We've got our panic buttons right here. See that? There's my hand right on my panic button. Dan,
I have one too.
Are you going to depress your panic button for the Dallas Cowboys after falling behind 30-0 through 3.5 quarters?
No, I'm not going to hit the panic button. I'll tell you why. Every team is allowed a clunker, and Dallas, that was a major league clunker. Don't even look at the final score, 30-16. That was 2 garbage time scores. Dak didn't even have 100 yards passing until 10 minutes to play in the game. So there's so many things. You would look at this game, and if you had no other knowledge of what had happened this season, you'd say, oh, wow, this is like the 2020 season all over again. But it wasn't that. It was that on Sunday, but that's not who the Cowboys are. I don't think this is a team that's about to go in the tank. I think they got humbled a little bit and might even help them in the long run, even though it was probably embarrassing in front of 90,000 fans, including quite a few Broncos fans in that building.
Well, I'll tell you, the interesting thing about this game was the way that Vic Fangio opted to attack Dak Prescott in the absence of Tyron Smith. So much attention being paid, including right here on Power Rankings, to the absence of Dak in practice and whether or not that calf issue was going to be an issue. I don't think it was the calf. I think it was no Tyron Smith because they overloaded that side on the defensive side of the ball, and without Bradley Chubb, without Von Miller, without Malik Reed, you get Cooper that gets 2 sacks, and there was constant pressure on Dak Prescott. That's the name that I'm looking for. So I'm not going to hit panic just yet, but
you sure? I'm
thinking about it. I'm thinking about whether or not. I'm not, but I am not. I am with it. How about the Rams? The Rams.
Oh, this one's an easy. No. Well, yeah. Give me that one shot. Give me my shot.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a little bit.
Oh, you're going to do it.
Just because of what I said earlier. I don't think the Cardinals are going to slip
What was that sound? That's not a pat. What do we do? That's the best we could do.
Well,
we can't get a real panic button here?
Like no air raid sound.
You're making us look like fools, Jen Koski.
I am a fool.
Our producer behind the glass.
I am Fortune's fool. My only issue for panic is what I alluded to, and that is that I don't think the Cardinals are going to release the grasp on the NFC West, and the number 1 seed has a huge advantage through the postseason. So that's my only concern about the Rams losing this game as they try to keep pace with the Arizona Cardinals.
No, I don't panic at all. I think they caught the Titans at the wrong time. The Titans are playing with so much confidence right now. They feel so good about themselves. And just like with the Cowboys, you are going to have some stinkers here now and then. Now, also, look at what happened in this game. If you actually study the game itself, you had the 2 second-quarter interceptions, one for a pick six. The LA defense was great. The Rams had less than 300 yards of offense, so I think that wasn't a problem. It was just Stafford getting a little bit of a hole for his offense, and they just couldn't put it all together. No panic yet. It was just a bad week.
2 things. One, I don't appreciate that. That was a shot. You said, if you actually watch this game. I did watch the game. It was Sunday Night Football.
Subtweet to
it was the only game that was on. So for you to intimate that I did not watch this game, hence my little bit of panic, I didn't appreciate that, Dan.
You know who did watch it? Rachel Bonetta.
You better watch out. You better hold your tongue, my friend. Am I panicked about the Rams making the playoffs? No. My issue is I think it's a much easier path winning your division and playing home games in the postseason as opposed to a bunch of road games, and I don't think they're going to be able to overtake the Cardinals based on how Arizona is playing. That's my concern. And also, better figure out that center of the offensive line, Sean McVay. Make some adjustments during the game because that's what affected Matthew Stafford was that Jeffrey Simmons push up the middle. There's not a lot of Jeffrey Simmons out there in the NFL, so it's not like you're going to have to be too concerned about it every week. I would simply say I would have liked to have seen some sort of in-game adjustment to help out Matthew Stafford, who was under constant pressure up the middle. Don't say fair.
And
now you're just trying to atone for the fact
I want to say that
you should have never done that.
You're a sneaky tape dog, and I respect your abilities.
That's a cheap shot,
DanHanzus. Tape dog.
How about the Bills? 9-6. We mentioned 2 field goals of offense in that game. And by the way, Dan, don't do the Josh Allen thing. I know you've been so excited about that all week long, Josh Allen versus Josh Allen. Let's just leave that one.
Everybody, have an imagination. There's so much out there in life.
Let people have some fun. Let people have some fun.
I mean, but to act like it's the most amazing thing that there were 2 players named Josh Allen.
Why can't you just let people have fun?
I let them have their fun until they stick it in my face and tell me that it's important and special. It doesn't matter.
It was fun.
You know what does matter, though?
I'm with you.
It's a panic situation. The Bill.
Oh, there's our air raid sound.
Koski.
She got you.
Got me. Hey.
This is my panic sound.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the Bills. If I'm a Bills fan, I'm concerned because you look at the AFC and everything's pointing the arrows. This is it. This is your year. This is the time to make the move. And I know they've been DVOA darlings before Sunday, but they haven't been the same team on offense this year. They don't have that big strike ability, and it's everyone's talking about it now. Same thing with the Chiefs. This too high shell that's freaking out the Bills and freaking out the Chiefs. They got to figure this out because they were not close to the team that excited us so much last year.
Like DVOver. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
DVOA. You and your DVOA. We love you, Football Outsiders. However, I'll say this. A lot of people are pointing to the Chiefs as, they're not the same. They've cracked the code. Patrick Mahomes won't settle for underneath. Andy Reid won't run the ball. The exact same thing, you alluded to it, the exact same thing can be said about this Bills offense.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll was everybody's darling last year. He's passing on first down. He's passing on second down. Do you realize they played a game where they only ran the ball once? We love this guy. Well, defenses are going to adjust to that. And when you condition your offense and your muscle memory is to throw, and to take shots downfield, and now all of a sudden you are trying to recondition your quarterback who had all this success and was second in the MVP voting the year prior, you're going to experience things like this. They don't know who their runner is. They handed the ball to Singletary a lot more times than Moss. Going into this game, it was all Moss. So they are searching for answers. I absolutely think it is time to panic a little bit on the Buffalo Bills.
Just a little. Let's not act like they're finished. But,
no, they're going to, I believe that, they still got to pay the Patriots twice.
Oh, you think? Wait, you think that division's up for grabs in a legitimate way?
I think it's interesting that they have those 2 games left on their schedule.
Bills fans
and Bill
do not want to
Belichick
hear
is
that.
Very good at scheming it up.
I would even on this show 3 weeks ago we were saying, or I was saying, this division's already done. They're going to win the division by 4 or 5 games. I don't know anymore. It might get a little uncomfortable.
Look, they're in the playoffs. Josh Allen is going to be fine. But it's the Jags. When we return,
you don't count out Urban Meyer.
We have got 5 sweet fantasy finds. Studs to secure in your starting lineups, including a backup running back that is set to lead his team in targets. And Cynthia Freeland going to be along. She's got issues of how Dan slotted the AFC North again. We'll get into Baltimore and the Bengals next.
the jungle, you eat or you starve. It ain't a group in the world that I would rather go to war with tonight, right now. Let's be special tonight. Please leave without a win. I need each and every one of you. ATL! ATL! We sending them boys super homes, chilling in the Superdome. Let's go! Six, baby! God, don't stop till we hit 50. We had to turn up in Hollywood, you know what I'm saying? Oh, it's beautiful. Let's take this game over up front. We run Ohio. No! Right there!
It's time for our math magician, the premier predictive analyst in all the land, and she brings an autumnal feel to her presence today with that burnt orange, sweet-looking spot from the East Coast sweater. It is Cynthia Freeland back on Power Moves. We appreciate you being here, Cynthia. Let's talk about what your computer is spitting out when it comes to Dan's power rankings and what jumped out at you. We start with the AFC North.
Yeah, well, the AFC North in general is interesting, but I think you're being a little mean to the Bengals. Ooh. I mean, this is a team who has really exceeded a lot of expectations. I understand in the past 2 weeks it's looked a little bit different, but they're still a powerhouse. They still have those wins, and they're playing a fourth-place schedule. So I'm looking at this going forward and thinking, you know, when I see this secondary, when I see the ability for them to complete deep passes, Joe Burrow, come on. What are you doing here, buddy?
Well, here's the difference, Cynthia, and I would love a cup of warm apple cider if you have it.
With a cinnamon stick in it?
Yeah, with the cinnamon stick, the whole thing, and give me some gloves with the fingertips cut off.
That's too much.
That's too much. You're right. I took it too far.
Yeah, you did.
Cindy, the difference between the machine, and I know the machine and Cynthia are going to be on the Around the NFL podcast this week, and I can't wait.
Free plug.
Is that you're projecting what Cincinnati can be going forward. I can only do where they are right now. That's what I try to do with the power rankings. And they've been outscored 55-16 since the second half of the fourth quarter against the Jets.
Oh, that's making numbers figure.
Well, it makes sense. They blew the end of that game and then got run out of their own building. And I don't know. I think they'll be okay. But it's something to keep an eye on, and it's the first real challenge of the Zach Taylor era since they've become now a team to respect. How do you build up out of this hole you've put yourself in?
I'm with you, Cynthia. To me, this is just a bad matchup, but it's unfortunate that it's in their division and that this is a team they're going to be competing with for possibly one of the last playoff spots. But that defensive front of the Browns against that offensive line, I mean, this is the ultimate weakness of the Bengals and the ultimate strength of the Browns, and it was just on display in this one. I think you pull them out of that and put them into a better matchup, and the Bengals are probably in a little bit better shape. Look, it was ugly. There's no doubt about it. But Dan, dropping in the second half of the Jets, that's a low blow, Dan.
I needed to get them in there, but I
saw the Jets helmet in the background there, and you had to just slide that one.
Yeah, and we're sitting around a campfire, and Money's got his acoustic guitar.
Again, that's enough. Again, I feel like
it's the only thing I could think about. I kind of miss it.
Let's stay in the AFC North, Cynthia, and another team you got an issue with.
Well, I think that the Baltimore Ravens might be ranked a little high. I wanted to figure out like some version of like go jump in some leaves about your, Ravens projection, but I forgot what it's like to jump in leaves because we live in Southern California now. But when I look to see what the Ravens have done, they have not just 1, 2, or 3. They have 4 times where they've had under a 15% win probability in a game and made a comeback. Now, that just goes to show how important Lamar Jackson is. But if a team is able to stop Lamar Jackson, these close losses, and one of them is to the Detroit Lions, woof, that's going to be a completely different outcome. So while I think the Ravens are still really good, you have them ranked second in the entire AFC, and I think that is a little bananas.
All right, well, listen, Cindy, this happened last week when Bonetta was in for Money. You were saying how the AFC was so good and all this. I don't see it. I'm on a different page than you, and I see the Ravens as a flawed team. But, hey, look at the rest of the AFC right now. I think Baltimore is a team that sometimes you look at them and you say, okay, what's so hot about them? And there were times against Minnesota on Sunday where you're like, okay, this is a team with a lot of problems, but they have Lamar Jackson, and he's a cheat code. And it's the reason why, despite the fact that their DVOA grades might not be great, despite the fact that they'll look bad in stretches of games, they seem to always come out on top because they have a human cheat code. It's against the machine, Cynthia.
I'll echo Dan on this one. I think, Cynthia, you bring up a good point, right? Can you win this way with Lamar Jackson being your best thrower and your best runner? And I think the answer is yes, because it's, I equate it to college football. And when you'd have to play Paul Johnson's Georgia Tech teams or Navy, and you've got to prepare for that triple option that 1 week. And even though you may have more talent on the field, it's just a hard game to win. And I mean, look, you want to talk about cheat code? Patrick Ricard is a cheat code. He is a 315-pound fullback that can get out in the pattern like that. So to me, that's why I think it does make sense to have the Ravens that high, because they are such a pain in the tail to sort out and try to prepare for. The defense of Martindale and just Lamar Jackson on offense. I just don't know what AFC team you put there instead is what I'm getting at.
You said it, though, just Lamar Jackson on offense. It just seems to be like it's a little too concentrated on one player.
Well, and also, just quickly to put a button on it, Hollywood Brown's been unbelievable. Like, he has taken that step. We were like, well, can you really be that small and be a #1 receiver? Yes. Yes, you can. He is as nasty a cover on the outside as he was in the slot.
I thought there was a little juice in that running game beyond Lamar as well. They had 500 yards in that game. They were cooking in a lot of ways. And you find a
You know what they were cooking, Dan?
What?
Soup.
Oh,
I like that. A nice soup.
How about marshmallows over the fire?
That as well.
Get the capo, put it down to the 3rd fret. Let's play some Wonderwall.
Oh, geez, Dan. Can you play the guitar? Of course not.
Cynthia, of course not.
Fantasy findings. Thankfully, I wasn't here last week to be humiliated about my pushing back on Michael Carter, but I will out myself on corrections and retractions. You like these matchups here on the screen?
Of course. Yeah, I try to look for some people who are a little bit deeper in these matchups, not necessarily guys you always start. But I love Rashad Bateman now that I just talked about the Ravens. Got to double down on this one, but I think this is a great matchup against the Dolphins. A.J. Dillon against the Seahawks. Don't be surprised if he becomes a really big factor in this one. Kenyon Drake, Tim Patrick, and then, of course, James Conner, who had a ridiculously amazing game. I think that the output against the Panthers, because of some injuries to the rest of their backfield, is going to be a big game for him yet again. So it's not point chasing. It's, moving forward.
You've been on fire with these, Cynthia, and I like the Tim Patrick. He looked really good in Dallas, and the Eagles really struggle to stop the pass. It's been the case all season long. So I could see them building off that rapport, Teddy and Patrick together.
Yeah, and I'll grab onto that Kenyon Drake because, look, Derek Carr's coming off a 2-interception game-ending fumble, and we know that he historically, and he has broken out of that mold this year, historically wants to get rid of that ball quick. The Chiefs' defense has been better. Has it been great? No, but it's been getting closer to league average, and the way that Spags is starting to dial up some of these blitzes, I could see pressure coming, and you're absolutely right. He had a ton of targets. I think he had 8 targets, 6 receptions in that last one against the Giants, and I expect to see the same this week, especially if you're in a PPR league, which I think, I don't even have to say that anymore, right? Everybody's in a PPR league now. So love them both, Cynthia. Remember, you can get everything, including, and again, I'm going to say it, I don't like the Thursday Night Football recipes. It humiliates me. I'm a guy that wants to order a couple pizzas, maybe have a cheesesteak, something that's terrible for me, and watch a football game, and you're busy making, like, crushed Brussels sprout burgers or something like that. Feta cheese with low-fat cheese. Cynthia, all of her findings can be found at NFL.com/Freeland. Thank you, Cynthia.
You're my Wonderwall.
It's very pitchy. Here is 17 through 24.
I can't play the guitar and I can't sing. All right, you've made your point, Money.
Maybe you can just pound out a beat on the table here, huh? Let's see if you can keep time. Here is 17 through 24, those aforementioned Denver Broncos. At 5-4, by the way, tied for the most wins in the AFC West. Every single team has got 5 wins in the AFC West, including the Raiders. So we focus on a couple of them right there. When we return, how about this? Dan's nightmare coming to fruition. The Patriots. Bill Belichick is back, baby. That Patriots defense has been dominant. They are square in the middle of the playoff picture, but are they contenders in this wide open AFC? Find out next.
Nightmare is strong, but not a great spell.
Ravens going to start off our Week 10 versus the Dolphins. Thursday Night Football, 8 p.m. on NFL Network Fox and streaming on Prime Video as we welcome you back to Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Here it is, your fourth and final quadrant.
I mean, Jets, you had a chance to move up, and what do? You disappoint me. Why do you always disappoint me?
Injury. My gosh.
The
quarterback gets injured.
Defense had no
Josh Johnson's like 90 years old. What do you want?
He played well.
He did play well, actually. Just be thankful. You know, they're playing better now.
Oh, I get one win every 10 years now. That's great.
Time for you to get more upset because we move to the portion of our show that is David Carr and Coach Moosh. It is the CNC Football Factory player pushback segment.
I like it.
Thanks, Money. Mooch, you and I have looked at this list, and we have some thoughts. So what stood out to you?
Well, one thought I have is that team from Nashville.
Yes.
Tennessee Titans. Man, it might be the best team in the National Football League. And I know they don't have the King Henry, the diminisher,
Didn't appear
right?
to matter.
Didn't matter. You know, what do they have? They have the best record in the AFC, but they've got a veteran quarterback in Ryan Tannehill who can run, who can throw, who can lead. You get Julio Jones back. That's a big one right there. And did they just sign Adrian Peterson right there? And they used him on the goal line, fake to him. And why don't you just run in because everybody thought you were going to give it to Adrian Peterson, but it's a balanced team. It's a physical team. Old school. They take on the personality of their coach, Vrabel. This is a dangerous team.
That's what I like, the old school approach. And where did he learn that old school approach? He learned it from Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. That's the team that I got my eye on because this man came walking in like this. I mean, when the coach looks like that, all he cares about is football. That's all he cares about. And he knows he has a good football team because you don't rock that, Mooch, if you don't have confidence in what your team's doing. So those guys, look out. The other team that I have my eye on, the Eagles. The Eagles are really, really low. A lot of people hating on them, not feeling like they can play. You know, Jalen Hurts getting some heat from the local media in Philadelphia. We all know how that is. But this guy, all he did was come out and play great football. Played great, almost got the win against the Chargers. But they're running the ball well. They're able to utilize him in the run game. I really like this team. They need to be a little bit higher. They need to be on everybody else's radar. I think that they're going to be pretty good towards the end of this season and start to gel a little bit. So that's what we have. Let's see what happens next week with the list. Don't forget to catch us on weekdays on Total Access. Money and Hanzus, back to you guys.
The Carr and Coach Football Factory coming after you, Dan. Now, the analysis was essentially around Bill Belichick rocking sweatpants like it was 1996, which I appreciate.
I thought he looked awesome.
Let's focus on those Patriots and whether or not they are too low after 3 straight wins and 4 out of 5.
I think the fact that they're number 11 in the power rankings tells you that this team's ahead of schedule a little bit. I think the defense, and we're seeing it week after week, it's really coming together. They have an identity. They love to run the football, and they will scramble a quarterback if he's not ready for it. They've been scrambling Sam Darnold for years, Bill Belichick. But, yeah, I think this team, and I've been a little ahead of this one, Money. Some things I'm behind, some things I'm ahead. I'm taking credit for the Pats. I've been thinking that this could be an AFC playoff team for weeks, and right now, and maybe you're a little bit, could they contend for the division? I don't know, maybe. But this is a 9 or 10 win, maybe 11 wins if everything clicks. I like it. J.C. Jackson's become a stud in that secondary. They should still have Steph Gilmore. That would have made them super imposing.
Yeah, well, I mean, J.C. Jackson looks like the best, in the conversation is the best corner in the league. It's all defense. And Matthew Judon's going to go down as one of the great free agent signings. And Belichick typically does pretty well with those. A lot of people were taking shots at him for the Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. Smith's starting to come on. Henry's been fantastic. I mean, he is Mac Jones' go-to receiver in the red zone. And he's only caught touchdowns, I think, in each of his last 5 or 5 of his last 6 is kind of the way it's worked for Henry. So that chemistry is working. Here's my one issue with the Patriots is we can talk about them making the playoffs, and I think they are square in the middle of the mix. But look at those numbers on Mac Jones. And that tends to be how it looks week in and week out. In that win against the Chargers, wasn't able to cash in. It was 4 Nick Folk field goals and that pick 6 that kind of got them all their points. Here you see 139 yards, a touchdown, and that bad pick. So if they're going to win a playoff game, I think they're probably going to need a little bit more out of Mac Jones. Everybody's talking about, Rookie of the Year, the best of the 5 quarterbacks. He's fit in well. He's done okay, but this has been defense. This has been Bill Belichick and defense that is carrying the squad, and that's a nasty defense.
Some of the air has come out of the Mac Jones balloon in the last 2 weeks, but that's the way it is with a rookie quarterback. There's ups and downs, and their opportunity or chance to make an actual playoff run in a wide-open AFC. It comes down to whether he matures and takes that next step this year. I don't know if we're there this year. It's hard to make that leap.
Right.
But I'm still feeling good about Mac Jones, and I'm feeling good about the Patriots, as annoying as that is as an AFC East fan.
I will piggyback that with, well, talking about the opponent of a team that David Carr had an issue with, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's his brother.
Eagles are good. It's not fair to us. It's just not fair to have one of the better quarterbacks in the league have the name Derek Carr and our colleague be David Carr.
Well, that's life.
Point being, the Eagles are good. Their secondary is not good. It's getting a little bit better, but I'm with David, and I think that's how I'm going to use that particular conversation to put a spotlight here on the Chargers. They had 2 bad losses. The score was not nearly indicative of what it looked like against the Patriots when they lost 27-24. They got throttled by the Ravens. They needed to win that game. It's not easy going to the East Coast across the country. That Eagles front was really good going into that game, especially coming off what they did against the Lions. 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. That's it. That was the only hurry on Justin Herbert the entire game. He did not get sacked once. That was the only pressure, and he turned it into a touchdown run. Look at Herbert's numbers, 356 and 2 touchdowns. He had 2 games of sub-70 quarterback rating. He needed to shake it off. Mike Williams came up with a big play again. It's kind of like everything they needed that had gone wrong the previous 2 weeks, they were able to get right. Keenan Allen had 13 targets, 12 receptions, and 2 huge third down conversions in this one. So it was a really good get-right game for the Chargers, who are kind of sniffing in that top 10.
I mean, you're the voice of the Chargers, and they're a fun team to cover and watch, and I think even football fans, Justin Herbert's such a fun player. You want to see him thriving. So I'm glad that he came out of that slump. I hope Joe Burrow and the Bengals are next because they make the AFC more interesting. I just want to have one more point because David Carr brought up the Eagles and he thought they were too low. And we were watching that tape just now. The Eagles' defense is going to keep them from being a real competitive team. Did you know, this is a crazy stat. Let me just check my notes here. Justin Herbert became the 5th opposing quarterback of the Eagles this season to complete more than 80% of his passes, tying the NFL record for futility in that department as a defense with the 2015 Bucks. The Eagles have 9 games left.
It's a good front. They have issues in the secondary. And remember, Darius Slay left that game with a quad injury, a hammy injury. So I think they were a little bit better.
I'm just saying.
I hear you.
Defense is a little messy in the back end.
Fair.
A lot messy.
David Carr takes a shot at you. You take a shot at David Carr.
That's how we do.
Steelers. Oh, a shame it had to end that way. It was a wildly entertaining 4th quarter of Sunday Night Football. We're getting to teams we missed. We're not leaving you out. Find out who we're talking about next.
Television is about score settling.
pass for the end zone. Back shoulder fade. Touchdown. Pick. Freiermuth took it away from the defensive back. 10-yard strike. The second of the game for Freiermuth. Throwing it on the run for the end zone. And it's a touchdown. A 16-yard touchdown for Fields. This game is tied. Wow, mama. What can you say? The snap is down. The kick is on its way. Long enough. High enough. That kick is good. Boswell, an incredible night at Heinz Field, has put the Steelers on top. Wow!
Back on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. It's the Who'd We Miss segment of our program. And, Dan, you saw it right there with the Steelers. Just kind of your thoughts on where Pittsburgh stands right now, because you said it. It's a muddled AFC, and they are smack in the middle of the playoff.
Yeah, and they're kind of like a perfect picture of the AFC in general. They're hard to make sense of. I kept them at 14, which is like kind of I see them as a playoff team, but that could easily change quickly with a bad week or two. I don't know. Like, when you're watching that game, do you see the Steelers as a team to view seriously as a contender? Because I see a team.
I see T.J. Watt.
I see T.J. Watt doing damage.
Fitzpatrick.
I see them having an opportunity early in that game with that crowd going nuts. They get the early lead. Justin Fields looks a little scatterbrained to just blow that game out. And they can't do it because the offense doesn't have that ability. So I give them credit for, almost collapsing and losing, getting that big drive at the end. At the same time, it's like they still seem like a team that's middle of the road.
Yeah, to me, I think the key with the Steelers, they have game wreckers. T.J. Watt is a game wrecker. Minka Fitzpatrick is a game wrecker. They got to figure some stuff out on offense. But when you can do that defensively, you can really mess teams up. And I think that's kind of what they're hanging their hat on and why they find themselves at 5-3. I'm going to go with the New York Giants. We have not talked about the Giants outside of your challenge flag that you threw at the two New York teams for being at the bottom of the power rankings a couple weeks in. Credit to Patrick Graham, defensive coordinator. They did. Yeah. They answered your challenge, Zeuser. How about their last 3 games? They've allowed 3 points, 20 points, 16 points. That's 20 to the Chiefs, 16 to the Raiders. They forced 3 turnovers, including a game-ending fumble and a pick 6 of Derek Carr in getting that victory over the Raiders. They are tied for 5th in turnovers. Leonard Williams, 5.5 sacks. Ojulari, 5.5 sacks. Xavier McKinney has 4 picks on the season, including the 2 in this last game. So just want to acknowledge, as you look at their schedule, Tampa Bay, Chargers, Cowboys, they play each of those teams in the next 5 weeks. Maybe you're looking at your strength of schedule and saying, Giants, look at that record. No, this team is not a pushover. Specifically defensively, they can cause a lot of problems.
Getting the Bucs, if they could somehow knock off the Bucs, I'm all the way in. I'm with you. I think they're a team to keep an eye on. And I'll throw one more out there. How about the Saints?
Heck of a fourth quarter.
Great fourth quarter. Great game. Great rivalry there with the Falcons and the Saints. And I will say this. Listen, Drew Brees is gone. Now Jameis Winston is gone.
Right.
You got to catch the football. Trevor Siemian is doing his best. Taysom Hill's doing his best, but these guys are not all pro throwers of the football. And when you're dropping passes and kicking away opportunities for chunk plays, when you have quarterbacks that aren't going to give you a ton in a game, it's going to come back to get you. And the problem, I think, for the Saints, as much as I like their defense, as much as I love their coaching and Alvin Kamara and that offensive line, is there's no way to fix the pass catching core here. I think this is an off-season project. Michael Thomas isn't walking through that door.
Maybe somebody else is.
No.
Just plant that seed. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No?
Maybe.
All right. Guess what we get next, Dan?
Are we talking about the same thing? I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're still doing this?
Constructive criticism. I'm blaming the old Zeuser because he's in charge.
I like that, though.
Of the power rankings at NFL.com. You appreciate that, right?
Positive and negative because it's a negative connotation, but that he's in charge.
Right. That's what you like. The power that comes when you wield the power ranking sword. We'll get to more of that.
It's my self-esteem.
Next.
It's an issue.
How about choose Play NFL Knockout? It is a free-to-play game presented by Caesars Sportsbook. All you got to do is answer 15 questions about the Seahawks-Packers game, and you could win exclusive prizes, including, how about this, a VIP package to this year's Super Bowl 56 right here where we sit in Los Angeles. You can visit NFL.com/knockout.
Hey, let's not ad-lib on the copy. Read it as it's written, all right?
How do you know what was written? You don't have it.
I know.
And anytime you say, how about this? That's how you grab people's attention. Like this. Watch, ready? Hey, how about this?
Oh, got me.
People have issues with the old Zeuser in his power rankings. No surprise, like Steven Williams. Y'all really going to move the Packers down 4 because they were missing the best player in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, there are penalties for your quarterback making decisions that put his team in a bad spot, like Aaron Rodgers did, showing his whole butt last week. And I didn't drop him into the 20s.
I mean, 4's a lot for a team that a lot of people think is one of the best teams in the. I mean, they were a one-loss team with Aaron Rodgers, riding the longest win streak in the NFL.
This way. In the power rankings, if you're number 4, you could be back at number 1 next week. Go get a W in a big spot with your quarterback back against Seattle.
Defense did play well without like
what do you want me to do? Do you want me to put them up to number 1 because they lost?
Just maybe keep them static. Just keep them static.
They were number 1. Huh? Just going to keep them at number 1.
Yeah, why not?
The Cardinals are going to be like, what?
You're also going to, oh, I love these. These are my favorite at the bottom. When you start kind of getting into who's 28, who's 31, you're going to tell us the Jets are better than the Lions. I think they faced each other. Solid would come out knee-less.
All right. Well, listen, we all love Dan Campbell, but you get the clown horn, good sir, because the Jets, as much as they've been terrible for most of the season, they've beaten the Titans. Okay.
Right.
And they've beaten the Bengals.
That one, by the way.
Okay. And the Lions have beaten the...
Well, and they also knocked off, remember, the Ravens they had on the ropes, and then... Oh. Well, and then there was the...
You should be happy the Lions aren't 32.
When we return, challenge flags will be thrown. Not that he hasn't been challenged enough over the last week. Another challenge for Baker Mayfield. We'll see whether or not he chooses to accept it with the Patriots on the schedule.
Leave Baker alone.
Oh. What's the O for?
I needed to get
notable
my
matchups.
Flag.
That's what the O is for. Me too. I forgot about my challenge flag, but I now have it in hand. Browns and Patriots. We're going to get to that game in just a moment, but take note: Nick Chubb in COVID protocol. So we'll see whether or not he is going to be available for that one on Sunday. And boy, after what he was able to put on the Bengals, that would be a huge loss. So something to keep an eye on. the now number 4 Green Bay Packers.
Let's keep him at number 1.
After playing a game without Aaron Rodgers. All right, challenge flags. We issue challenges to teams, to inanimate objects, to individuals. What do you got, Dan?
All right, let's get the old one shot here. I challenge you to leave Cassius Marsh alone. He's perfect. He traveled from another time, from another dimension, maybe another premium cable television series, to play football in our world, and we should be nice to him because he got picked on by game officials on Monday Night Football.
What are you doing, Tony?
And you upset this man. Look, he's got something in his mouth. He's just like us.
He's got hand tattoos.
Yes. Can you believe that penalty on Monday night?
You know what I was going to say? He's nothing like us. Or I'm nothing like him. What that man is capable of doing.
He got lint in his mouth, though.
Prowess is not something I'm capable of. All right, here's my challenge flag. Ready? Look at that sweet toss. Who can do less? Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones? Because that's what we hear coming out of Browns and Patriots games always is, you don't want Mac Jones doing more than this. You don't want Baker Mayfield throwing the ball 30 times. So this is going to be a true battle this week of which quarterback can do less in order to gain victory.
No Nick Chubb, no Nick Chubb, no Nick Chubb.
You know, Browns won because Baker Mayfield did less. Thank you for watching. It was great to be back. Thanks again, Benetta. No thanks to you, Zeus.
He lives.